Hello, and thank you for joining us today in our studies of 2 Samuel. Today we are in the final chapter of the book of 2 Samuel in chapter 24. And here we're going to have another incident, and we're not really sure of what the timing is of this particular incident, but we do know that it's later on in the days of David. But here in chapter 24, you're going to have David take a census. Now, chapter 24, verse 1 says, "The anger of the Lord was aroused against Israel," and David is going to be influenced, as it were, to say, to go and number the children of Israel. Now, this is going to be David's choice. This is going to be something David is going to do, even against the objections of some of those around him, like Joab, who doesn't really want to go do this. And the reason for that is that there were laws and reasonings that the people were not to be numbered, that they were not to put their trust in numbers. They were supposed to put their trust in God. And yet, you're going to have David, who is going to order this census to take place. And so because of that, you're going to have Joab go about and he's going to number the people. Now, in the correlating passage in 1 Chronicles chapter 21, it's going to say he doesn't completely number the people. He doesn't completely finish the job that he was set out to do. But he is going to number a large number of the people. And you come out to a situation where, depending on which one you look at, because there are some number differences and there's some terminology differences between 2 Samuel 24 and 1 Chronicles 21, which may give the indication that they're actually giving two different sets of numbers for a different set of circumstances. But that being said, you're talking about having over 1 million soldiers in Israel, or 1 million men of fighting age in Israel and in Judah combined. As a matter of fact, the numbers go between 1.3 and 1.7 million men that they have to field in battle, which is an enormous number. And you look at the armies of today, and the overwhelming majority of the armies today can't field that many individuals in their militaries. But that's how many men Israel has at their disposal at this particular time. But this was not something that David was supposed to do. This was not something that God wanted the kings of Israel to do, because then their trust would be in their numbers and not in God. You know, you think back to Gideon, you think back to various other examples where God is wanting to illustrate, or God is willing to illustrate to the people, that he is there for them and that he will take care of it and he will help them with small numbers, where it's not necessary to have the biggest army or to be the biggest bully on the block. But here David's going to take the census. At the end of the census, he is going to state in verse 10 that he has sinned. His heart condemns him. And he is going to state that he has sinned greatly in what he has done. Notice, he doesn't say anybody else made him do it. He doesn't say that anybody else forced his hand. He takes responsibility for what it is that takes place. Now, God is going to send a prophet. And the second thing that we notice here in chapter 24 is that this prophet, Gad, is going to give David three different choices. He is going to have three different options as to what his punishment is going to be. And you know, that it's kind of interesting because you don't often see this particular means of punishment being laid out by God. But God says here, you have three choices. You can either choose 7 years of famine, or you can choose fleeing 3 months before your enemies. In other words, for 3 months, you will lose every battle, you will lose every interaction with your enemies, and they will come after you. Or you can choose 3 days of plague in your land. Which is it, David? Now, if you were David, what would you choose? There are no good options that come out of this. All of these are going to be painful. All of them are going to be difficult to bear. And so David does a wise thing as far as that goes. In verse number 14, he says, "Please let us fall into the hand of the Lord, for his mercies are great." He leaves it up to God, as it were. He does not, in the wording, there's a couple of different ways you can take it. You can either take it that he is simply going to leave the decision up to God, or in some places it's been thought that he might be saying that he doesn't care which of the first or third options, but he doesn't want the second option, which are the 3 months of his enemies. Either way, ultimately, the decision he leaves in the hands of God, and God is going to choose the plague for 3 days. And it is going to be the case that the angel that is going to be sent from Dan to Beersheba is going to destroy 70,000 individuals. And then something interesting happens. The Lord relents. The Lord is the one who stops the angel. And the Lord is the one who tells him it is enough. The point has been made, and things have been settled. Even with God, here in this instance, he limits himself in his judgment, and he shows mercy. David here has a choice. He chooses to put himself in the hands of God. And while punishment still comes, and it is a painful punishment, it is still one where God does not go to the fullest degree that he could have. And God is going to cut the judgment short. But then you have the third key element in this chapter, and that is the sacrifice. The sacrifice that David is going to offer when he goes to the threshing floor of Araunah, the Jebusite. And he is going to come to this threshing floor, and he is going to ask for it to build an altar before God, to offer sacrifices before God of repentance, and to try to make everything right. And when he comes to Araunah basically says, here, you just take everything. As a matter of fact, here are the oxen for the burnt sacrifice, and you don't even have to do anything. I will give it to you. And David makes this statement in verse 24. He says, "No, but I will surely buy it from you for a price, nor will I offer burnt offerings to the Lord my God with that which costs me nothing." I will not offer sacrifices to God that cost me nothing. There is a very important message in that statement of David. The word sacrifice means to give up something that you can't get back. It means the mentality and the willingness to give up something of yours to give it to someone else. David says it's not a sacrifice if it doesn't cost me something. And even though this sacrifice is intended as worship, and even though it is intended to right a wrong in this particular sense from the sin that David has committed, David is not going to atone for himself with something that didn't cost him anything. Question: is our service to God costing us anything? Are we offering anything to God that is of any tangible value in our lives? Or are we trying to pass something off as a sacrifice that is costing us absolutely nothing? We need to be those who recognize that true sacrifice is always going to cost us something. It may not be something financially. It may be something from the standpoint of the things that we have to say no to, or the things that we have to say yes to that wouldn't be our first option. It wouldn't be the first thing that we would choose, but because we serve God, that's what we're going to do. When it comes to the things that we do before God, it is not a sacrifice if it costs us nothing, if it requires nothing of us, if it doesn't force us to do something. These are some of the things that I see in 2 Samuel chapter 24. We see a bad decision that is going to be made. We see the punishment that is going to come, but even in the midst of punishment, the mercy that is available in not taking it to the fullest extent that it could have gone. And then we see the importance of sacrifice. That sacrifice must cost something to truly be a sacrifice. I hope that these things were beneficial to you, and I hope that you have enjoyed our study of 2 Samuel. We have now concluded this study. We are going to pick up and continue our study of 1 Kings starting on Monday, so you'll have a couple days of a break from our studies over the weekend. But on Monday, we will come back, and Lord willing, we will begin a study of 1 Kings. And I hope that you'll join us as we continue our studies through the history of Israel. But until then, have a great day.